Hello everyone. My greetings to one and all. I am Poonam Vohra from Egypt Economics Learning Center. From now onwards, the discussion will be on employment as a challenge to India. Every rational human being would like to work for livelihood. They would like to work for firms, for banks, for offices, for government department, for public sector, private sector, or at home. And people would like to work not only for themselves but also for their dependents. The study on working people has given an insight about the nature and the quality of employment in the country. In order to understand various aspects of employment, one has to understand its very basic concepts. Once you are through with the concepts, then you will understand its trends over the years, changing structure in the form of more informalization and casualization of employment. You will also analyze the problems in generating employment opportunities for people in the country. And finally, the solutions provided by the government in order to reduce this challenge of unemployment in India. In the present session, the learners will understand the basic concepts relating to employment. So let us begin. Let's understand few very basic concepts. To begin with, who's considered as a worker? All those people who are engaged in the economic activities are considered as workers. These are either hired or self-employed. Hired workers are employed by others and are paid wages and salaries. These can either be regular or casual workers. Regular workers are hired on permanent basis and they get social security benefits. These account for 15% of India's workforce, whereas casual workers are not hired or permanent basis, nor do they get any social security benefits, and these account for 33% of the total India's workforce. Self-employed workers use their own resources to earn their living. They provide jobs to themselves, and more than 50% of the workforce in India belongs to this category. So one can find worker population ratio, which is total number of workers divided by total population into 100. If this ratio is higher, it means that the engagement of people in economic activities is high. And if this ratio is low, it means very high proportion of the population is not involved in the economic activity. Next concept is labor force and workforce. All members of the population are not supposed to be engaged in economically productive activities. Very young, that is below 15 years of age, very old, physically and mentally challenged, with few exceptions, are excluded. Thus, those who can and should produce goods and services constitute labor force. This is potential labor force. A further deduction has to be made for the people who are engaged in household activities and are not willing to work. So labor force includes all those who are engaged in the economically productive activities and all those who can be so engaged. To be precise, it includes employed and unemployed workers. So one can find labor force participation rate, that is labor force divided by the size of population into 1000. Workforce constitutes all those who are actually engaged in economically productive activities. And workforce participation rate is workforce divided by size of population into 1000. So participation rates are either in percentage or per thousand. So labor force is employed and unemployed persons, and workforce is number of persons working. So unemployed persons can be found by deducting workforce from the labor force. Now here are few facts about worker population ratio. This we have already understood, that worker population ratio is total number of workers divided by total population into 100. As per the unemployment survey of 2015-16, worker population ratio was estimated to be 47.8% at all India level. It implies that 478 out of 1000 people were employed during this period. In rural sector, it is estimated to be 50.4% as compared to urban areas where it is 41.4%. The female worker population ratio is estimated to be 21.7% at all India level. It is 24.6% for rural areas and 14.3% in urban areas. Similarly, the male worker population ratio is 72.1% at all India level. In rural areas, it is 74.1%. In urban areas, it is 66.8%. Similarly, we have also understood about labor force participation rate, that is labor force divided by size of population into 1000. As per the unemployment survey of 2015-16, labor force participation rate is estimated to be 50.3% at all India level. It implies that 503 persons out of 1000 persons aged 15 years and above were either working or seeking work during the reference period. It is estimated to be 53% in rural areas and 43.5% in urban areas. Also, female labor force participation rate is 23.7%. In rural areas, it is 26.7%, whereas in urban areas, it is 16.2% only. So far as male labor force participation rate is concerned, it is 75% at all India level, 77.3% in rural areas, and 69.1% in urban areas. One of the reasons for lower female labor force participation rate is the low female participation rate in urban areas. Now assess yourself. 4 options are given and choose the correct option. The statement is, worker population ratio helps us to know A. Proportion of population who are not working but seeking work. B. Proportion of population who are getting work but unwilling. C. Proportion of population who are actively contributing. And D. Proportion of population who are neither getting nor willing. The correct answer is option C. Worker population ratio helps us to know proportion of population who are actively contributing. Now a piece of information has been provided. Read it and answer the question. I will just read it for you. As per the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, India's unemployment rate shot up sharply to 9.1% in December 2020 from 6.5% in November 2020. This was mainly due to high unemployment in rural India. This information has been taken from the Economic Times dated 7th January 2021. So the question to you is, what could have been the reason for rise in unemployment rate? There has been rise in the unemployment rate in rural areas, and the reason for such rise in unemployment is fall in the employment of labor in the farm sector was the major reason. At the same time, there was deterioration in the labor market in rural as well as in urban areas. This aspect also contributed to rise in unemployment. I hope you have understood the basic concepts in unemployment. With this, the present session comes to an end, but we shall continue further with the unit. The next session would be on the trends in employment and the changing structure of employment in the country. Till then, keep a watch over the news, keep reading and keep learning.